Hey there. So I wanted to talk a little bit about narcissism and how to come through the other side of that tunnel. And I know this is going to be kind of just a brief introduction, but mostly I think a couple of the things that were vital for me. Number one, you need to understand what you're dealing with. And my first stop, well, there was two. So I would say Sam Vaknin, Samvaknin, and Ross Rosenberg. These are two really great places to go and start understanding what you're dealing with. Knowledge is power, and if you've been able to identify that, at least to the extent that, hey, something is really wrong here, I feel terrible with this person, they make me feel terrible, it feels like the Twilight Zone, and usually what they say and do does not align. If you've been isolated from your friends and family, if you've been subjected to crazy making, which is where you know, one minute you feel good, the next minute, things are turned around on you by them in the course of a conversation. If you start to get your bearings and you go into a conversation knowing what you want to say, and it all gets turned around on you, and you're the bad guy in the end every time. If you're loved one minute and treated horribly the next, if they use control methods, whether it's money or keeping you destitute, or the limits that they go to, it's like there's none. They'll do almost anything to keep control over you, and they'll do almost anything to keep you under their thumb. And the minute that you start to feel good again, they will pull the wool out from under you, and they will do what they can to make sure that the only reason that you're happy is, they want it to seem like it's coming from them. And I'm not an expert in this area, but what I want to say is that, these are just a few of the things. It doesn't even scratch the surface of some of the things that I've been through. And being where I am now, it's hard for me to convey the absolute devastation emotionally that comes from that. It's amazing how much pain there is, and I've done so much work at this point on me that I'm able to talk about it and be completely okay. And I think that is something that everyone would like to achieve. I think that the amazing part is that I've been able to do this in a year, and from what I've seen, most people can. It takes them a while. It takes them a lot of psychotherapy. It takes a lot of work. And thank goodness, I kind of blew the door open and just said, hey, universe, send me everything you got. And I listened, and I opened my mind, and I was willing and open to try things that, even seemed strange for me. And I'm a pretty open-minded person. So I would say that you're going to want to, if you want to get through this more easily, then you're going to need to be completely open-minded to some really interesting approaches, and I'm happy to share those with people, because I just feel like the options that are out there are wonderful, and I commend the people that are out there doing it. But I know that just from all the videos I've listened to, even the people that feel like they've got a handle on it, even a lot of them are still, you can hear the pain and the rage that's still there, and that can be fixed. It can be corrected within you, where you're not there anymore, you're not in that place anymore. And so I just want to do a series of videos, so to speak, where I'm addressing how that can be done, and how it can be fixed a little more easily. But it's going to take daily effort from the individual, and an open mind, and the ability to what you're going to be working on here, because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, what we're working on here, it's going to be spiritual growth, self-love, self-improvement type coaching, and that's where it's at. So, I think that that's going to be the bottom line. Ross Rosenberg's, what he's addressing most of the time is the codependent model, which is and I can't speak for him, this is just my takeaway. But what he's doing is he's looking at the flip side. So he's saying if you keep attracting these types of people to you, or you keep having these recurring relationships with the same type of people, it's time to look inward. And I was in 4 or 5 different relationships where it was like this, and I know that part of it started from childhood. So, I just continued this pattern. And finally, after my marriage, I realized, okay, time to look at me. And also the situation is such that because I have children with this man, it's like I have no option, because there is no correcting their condition that I've been able to ascertain. Because you have to have a person at the other side that's willing to see there's a problem and be willing to change it. So because that's just the complete opposite of that type of personality, that to me is why you're never going to really see progress. So there's no way to have it where there's something in it for them. I mean, if you can get it to where there's something in it for them, perhaps, but even then I still feel like it's more likely to fail. And any process that's going to get them to talk about themselves, they're going to dig that, they're going to find manipulative ways. So some of these approaches, I haven't been able to test them with them, but it is possible that some of these methods, because they don't require actually communicating, there is a real possibility that they might have progress on somebody that's like that. But the problem is you can't get them to come to the table. So really it's all about, let's take the person that's somewhat functional and able to come to the table and able to make progress and is willing to change and willing to try and get better and heal. And so that's where Ross Rosenberg's focus is, on the codependent side, rightfully so. And he is he's amazing. He has a ton of tools, and I would say go there first and get an idea of what it is. And then also you're going to want to spend time and look and understand what the narcissist is. And I would say Sam Vaknin, because I think his insights were kind of were great, because he is one. And so he's able to explain things in a way that are really, it's eye-opening in some ways. I feel, obviously, you have to take it slightly with a grain of salt, because he is one. So he's, there's probably, as with any conversation, there's going to be an angle a little bit there, his own coloring of that. So, take it with a grain of salt, but you can listen to how the reactions and the behaviors and some of the motivations that he's willing to share quite openly with the public. All this is on YouTube, so go there. Human Magnet Syndrome is Ross Rosenberg's book. I would definitely say that's a great book to have, and I would suggest doing these two things kind of simultaneously, because I think it's really important to understand both sides of the equation, and knowledge is power. And the more that you understand, Ross Rosenberg is going to give you the tools, but Sam Vaknin is going to give you the what to look for. And here's what they do, here's how they act, because if you don't understand, if you don't know their it's almost like he's giving you their whole playbook. And knowing their playbook, because they are very cookie cutter, and so you can really run into one and it's almost like you know them all, with a few variations. So really, once you understand their playbook and you spend some time with Sam Vaknin and listen, you're going to be pretty amazed. But you got to also understand, I mean, there's different classes and different types of narcissist personality types. There's other similar ones also. I mean, can be confused with Asperger's, and there's also borderlines, and there's just a slew. And I'm not a psychologist, so I'm just going to say, educate yourselves, get a good counselor, but you can also use some of the techniques that I want to show people, because they're so easy, they're so powerful, and they're mind-blowing. And it's a composition of just a whole lot of classes that I have taken in just a ton of research that I've done, but it's a daily practice. So if you're committed to not staying in this pain, you're going to need to put in the time and do it. So, and I think it's great because in some ways, the narcissists are transformers. They will transform you. They themselves can't transform, but they do. If you're willing to allow them to be a mirror for you, they will show you every chink in your armor. They will show you everything you need to work on, because that is what they use to break you down. So, if self-love is your issue, that's going to be their go-to. That's going to be the number one thing. So if you think you're a little heavy or overweight, they're going to go for that. If they feel like, you think that you have a strange shaped face, they'll go for that. If they think that you and your parents don't get along, they'll go for that. They will go for every weakness you have. If inner child work is what you need, if you feel like you've been abandoned, they will go for that. So what they're going to do is they're going to hold a big mirror up to you, and it's your job there to observe and don't internalize. Instead, start taking notes. How did he get to me this time? Or how did she get under my skin this time? Or what did she use just now that's got a rise out of me? Try not to react. Really just become an inspector, an investigator. You're there to take notes. They have just become your professor of what is flying around inside of you and making you sick and making your life not the awesome life that it could be. So we're going to start using them in a sense as a reflection that you can then use to make yourself almost impervious to them for future, and for also impervious to this type of person again, and give yourself true power and healing, so that you can actually go through life a little differently. And I say healing, I'm saying spiritual healing, personal healing, deep internal old baggage stuff that we carry around, and we don't. I want to go another step into that layer, and this is where I said you're going to need to open your mind a little bit, but you need to understand that the water in our bodies, it can actually retain information. And so even the blood, even the DNA that comes through our lines, it also keeps programs, and has programs that have run from generations back. And so it's really important that we're looking for that too. And we need to get rid of that too, because we may have programs running from our grandparents and way long, several generations before that, programs that are running. I had one that was, I needed a priest to heal, or I needed a priest to feel close to God. And I'm not going any religious route specifically, I'm just saying it was a belief that I had, and I couldn't tell you where it came from. In my awake 10% in control state, I have no idea where that came from. I don't hold that belief, but it's there in the programming. So the other person I'm going to direct you to consider is also Brent Phillips. I think Teal Swan has some really spectacular videos on self-help out there, and there's a ton of people out there that have some really intriguing and amazing ways of dealing with a lot of the stuff that's buried. So a lot of my focus is it's going to start out with what's buried in your subconscious mind, because that is where the bulk of our control is we are running these programs almost like we're sleepwalking through life, and we really are just running these programs constantly. And so when we're young, this is where a lot of it gets burned into us, where we your parent says something and it just lodges in your brain. And even if you go through life thinking that this is not your belief system, it's there, and it can create these really unfun roadblocks. I've had people that believed, I've tried all these methods to get better, and the first question I would test them for is, I believe I can heal, and the answer is no. Well, lo and behold, if your subconscious mind is holding the program that you can't heal, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at the problem. it's just not going to get better. So it's really important. We have to, think about it like if you have a car and you've got all this stuff in the trunk and you have no idea what's back there, but it's weighing you down and you're almost to the point where you can't even drive the car anymore. And so it's really important. It's time to clear out that trunk. It's time to, or go through that purse. I like the purse analogy of, if you're a woman, you'll understand. It's like you just keep putting stuff in there, and at some point you're like, I don't even know what's in your purse anymore. And there's a point where you just got to go through it. Well, because it's so heavy. And that's kind of how life is. We go through life, but we don't really have the tools to figure out what it is we're carrying around, and we don't have any way to get it out of there. So we go through therapy, and therapy to erase the tapes from our subconscious mind. My personal experience was with that. It took me 6 months of affirmation work to get myself into a better place, just on 1 or 2 topics. So whereas clearing the subconscious blocks in seconds, seconds, literally, that it's a totally different game. It changes the game. So that's how I am where I am in a year, where these very dedicated and hardworking psychologists are working overtime to try to help you reprogram the subconscious mind, which takes quite a long time. And that's for like 1 or 2 topics or whatever it is you've been working on. But still do it. Go, obviously, because they have exceptional tools and training as well. And I think that it's really, holistic is really about the whole thing. It's about getting out, being physical, getting your serotonin levels up, taking better care of yourself, eating better, surrounding yourself with healthy people, learning the tools to be able to protect yourself from the narcissist that may be in your life, and how to be completely unaffected by them. In fact, in many cases, once you figure out how they operate, you're able to just kind of steer them slightly, not for manipulation, but just to, kind of essentially kind of get them out of your way, so that they're not creating too much problems for you. Now, I'm not to say that there aren't dangerous ones. There's very dangerous ones out there. And that's a whole different scenario, but I think there's still things that you can do, or if you know that they're very dangerous, when you're in control of your feelings, there's ways to diffuse them, I would think, that you will learn, or you can work with your therapist on. But if you're not emotionally reacting, you're going to be in control, so that way you're not putting, you have a better handle on being able to use those tools that the therapists are able to give you to help you protect yourself. So, because when we react, and that's what they want to do, is they want to push the hot buttons to make you crazy. And, a lot of the time, you're their target, and the whole rest of the world thinks they're normal, which makes it worse. So the worst thing you can do, especially with one that's doing that, is to let them get you crazy. And especially if you are married to them and you have children, like in my case. I mean, if they're able to make you look crazy, that's your worst scenario right there. So you don't, where everyone else thinks they're normal. So, really the focus here is going to be on the individual, and there's, no right or wrong. It's more about just what is my real belief going on in the back of my mind that's creating this havoc, and clearing it out. So that's going to be one of the biggest things. That and starting with that, and starting with being able to educate yourself and realize what you're dealing with. But it's also kind of important, I'm going to say, as you're getting this information, try not to, I wouldn't convey it to the narcissist that you're doing this. I would just start educating yourself, and just keep that to yourself for now. Just, get yourself the information that you need. This is a lot of times, and I was completely on the same bandwagon for a while. We've been so hurt that we really want to strike back. It's all about, how do I get him back? Because people that haven't been through it have no idea the level of pain that ensues, because it's almost like you're addicted to them in a sense, and then they cut you off, and it's like the horror, and then they come back, and then they cut you off again, and it's just a game for them. They really just don't care. But but the person on the receiving end of that has basically been a severe trauma victim. I mean, I was given a whole PTSD stamp years back, and they said, do you want to fix it? This was a neurofeedback doctor, also a spectacular option. Neurofeedback's amazing. Neurofeedback doctor said, I can fix this for you, do you want me to fix it? And I tried it one time, and the pain was excruciating because I was still in the narcissistic relationship. And I said, don't ever do that again. I need my walls. So, I know I have PTSD, and he said, well, come back to me when you're out of this relationship. Because he knew, and he had actually seen my husband a couple of times as well. So he knew. But I don't think he knew the exact scenario. I don't think he knew exactly his, because they're so good at hiding it. I don't think he really had his number as far as what classification he is under. I'm not completely sure, but it's close enough to narcissism that I've been able to study that and have it, do wonders for me. So yep. So study, educate. It's not about getting back. It's about getting you back. And it's not going to do you any good to try and come at them because what is Ross Rosenberg? Ross Rosenberg said something like, don't wrestle with a pig. You'll just get dirty. And the pig just likes it. And his quote was perfect. So just roll with that. Because that's really, embrace that concept, because that's the one you're gonna put the saber away and just get yourself back. Because the only real way to ever get back at them is just to take yourself back. Because all they really want is power over you. So that is going to be the focus, and we get to do it in a whole new and fun way that will do nothing but complement whatever you already have going on, because really it's just about making whatever you're doing already more successful, because we'll get rid of all the blocks and the stuff that's going on with you in the back end that may be hindering or preventing the psychologist or psychiatrist, whoever you're seeing. It's probably going to make it harder for them having that stuff and having those blocks and having those belief systems. So let's clear those out. I want to teach you how. I want to clear those out, make your process with your doctors more successful, and get you to feeling better in more than a decade. Because sometimes some of the people I've heard, they've been at this for a while, and that is so unnecessary. So I want to help. Let's hit this from a new angle, from a spiritual self-growth, self-love component that will make whatever you got going work. Okay, so that's just the introduction, and I'll get into the actual videos later. Thanks.